Hey everyone, big news! We had the opportunity to have our Ready or Not gameplay reviewed by a tactics instructor known as Kinetic Concepts on YouTube. I'm very grateful that he was open-minded enough to consider tactical first-person shooter games like these as possible training tools for CQB for certain aspects of the game. And I'm even more grateful that he chose to use our footage as a metric to judge the tactics. He definitely had plenty of great insights and critiques of our tactics, and we are 100% going to use that information to get better and improve our gameplay. That being said, I wanted to clear up a few things that are strictly perspective and game related. First, Ready or Not has a very limited perspective. The only thing we can see is the first person view of one player. Unlike Ground Branch, where we can have 6 different and very flexible points of view, where you could have an overhead view that you can actually move around to different points on the map, and it's basically a free camera that almost looks like a drone. It's very impressive, and 6 others completely unique camera perspectives. The next thing is game movement limitations. In Ready or Not, there is no ability to walk over obstacles or barriers, no climbing, no running, no proning, unlike in Ground Branch. And I say this because there was a few moments where during our clearing there were barriers wall walking up to a door, where we would have stacked up on the door away from the threshold, but due to those barriers being there, it looks very clearly like you could step over them, but for whatever reason Void Interactive decides that we can't, unlike in Ground Branch. So Kinetic Concepts was absolutely right on everything tactics-wise, and I'm very impressed with his analysis. But due to the lack of game-specific knowledge, he did miss a few things that I'll point out here.
Okay, first question. Can we open the door without standing in front of it? I don't know if you can do that, but I'd imagine you could, and that's what I would do. So, I talk about this in my videos, and this is especially pertaining to law enforcement, right? So, like, you got to prioritize, greater likelihoods of risk, and how are you going to mitigate those risks? So, people, like to point out this stuff about walls aren't cover or whatever, right? I understand that. But we have to use what we have in the moment to our advantage. And what we know by looking at body cams is that people, let me go back a little bit as they're walking up right here, right? So bad guys generally wait until you start working the door or you're coming through the threshold, right? Plenty of bad guys shoot through doors. Okay, they don't take the first thing they don't do is take random shots through walls. And so you can in the game, but probably not with those barriers next to the door. That's fine. So if you could though, and someone pointed out, not with this stuff here, maybe this is a game thing, right? So I'm just pointing it out.
Crossfire moving up.
Don't let the environment dictate your behavior if you can manipulate the environment yourself. So real simple though, in this situation, maybe you just can't in the game, right? But you would just stand off to the side. You would stand up on this little curb or whatever and open the door. And just kind of work it from there. That being said, right, can we do as much of the work on the outside of the room before going in, right? So we opened the door and then I think we just kind of went in, right? Or step center or whatever, but is there something stopping us from panning all the way across, right? And, even if you have to do that quickly, like, I would still prefer to do that, right? Because look, it's the difference between going left or going right. I just made a video on this, like, 50-50 chance. Well, it's not really a 50-50 chance. Like, it's a 50-50 chance whether he's to the left or to the right, but like, you're gonna lose that in real life, right? And maybe even, because this is a bigger room and people might not be directly left or directly right, but you're still gonna open up more of the room. So my suggestion is, when possible, pan across, right? And then I don't know what's going to happen here, but in, let's just say, like stores, for example, or places or auditoriums, right? Places where there's like rows of things. Generally what you would do, and I don't know if this is going to be an option here, but you would have somebody kind of hold long down one direction, and the team would kind of, a couple guys would start clearing down the other direction, basically like in an L. That's going to avoid any friendly fire incidents and making sure that we're actually systematically clearing. And so I would just say to that point, right? And let's just like, again, think about this in a real life situation. There's still always going to be in like an active situation that you think is still active, right? For example, let's say it's an active shooter or this, right? And you show up and there's obvious signs that something's happening, but you don't hear anything actually happening right now, right? So there's still a sense of urgency that we need to start doing things. We need to do things quickly, but there's still nothing driving us in a certain direction at this point, which is fine. Like we're just systematically clearing everything. So I guess like the question kind of just would be to you, like, we're not going to pause outside the door and like look everywhere and do all these things. But is there a difference in this situation between opening the door and going, or opening the door and stepping 2 steps to the left real quick before you actually go in? Because people would argue, well, this is hostage rescue or this is active, so we need to go now. I don't disagree with that. But what is actually happening right in this second that we can't take 2 extra seconds to, and the good thing about doing that is when you go into a room, you are faced with like a lot of problems probably. And when you actually go through the threshold in that situation where you have no information on the room, you're trying to do a whole lot and your attention is being kind of taken everywhere, right? We have like processes and we scan and do all that stuff. But when we're able to clear as much of the room from the outside before going in, we are able to then focus our attention in specific areas, right? So if we pan across and, oh, this is a corner-fed room and I've seen most of this stuff, well, I know that if there is somebody in here, he's going to be to the left. I can basically disregard everything else and get ready for that engagement to the left. I wonder if you have somebody with you, like another officer. It'd be good too. I can't obviously see behind you.
Watch that window, this window right.
Got it.
I like the using of the white light to, help your teammates identify where you're at and what you're. Generally speaking, though, I didn't see it, but it's called contact cover. So one person will cover on the person, and one person will detain them. I think we had one guy that went past this individual, I think. Let me go back just a little bit.
Transport.
So, kind of just reading the situation here. Let's say you encounter a person who's obviously submissive and they're just like, they appear like they work there. Maybe it's an elderly lady or whatever. Like, you just really don't believe that person to be a threat. And obviously we have these closed doors to the left, but the bigger threat is the area to the right. And so if I was the person in front of the civilian that's on the ground here, I would definitely prefer to almost like immediately push to the left. Because if somebody comes around that corner, it's just gonna, put them right on top of you rather quickly, and you want to try to eliminate that dead space as soon as you can. In the game, you can call the suspects towards you. Would it have been better to clear the room first? So you can call them towards you. I would say in like an active scene situation, no, because it's just going to take too long. And there's also, I don't really necessarily think this has ever been a thing, but they teach it where if it is a hostage situation, you could trigger something to happen by moving that person, right? So generally they advise against it, and I would say if it's a single suspect and there's potential other threats, there's no hostages, then yeah, I would do that. Because obviously by placing ourselves inside of this little space here, we're kind of complicating things. We have more work that needs to happen. And yeah, so that is definitely better.
Is that double door behind us?
Copy. What just deployed?
My bad, guys. What I was saying is there is I've seen in other gameplay at one point that you can also wedge doors. They're putting wedges in the doors to prevent them from opening, which is good to do on an outward opening door. I've seen in the gameplays, not this one, but I caught something at a different point in time where you were able to wedge an inward opening door, which isn't something that would work. Just a little note there.
Megs, fall back a little bit to that first door. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. He caught it, but he kind of over-penetrated and put himself past that door. But if you had more guys too, and you saw that, you could just basically take his back, and the next guy that comes in can, basically set up on the door like they're gonna work the door.
I got cover on both of them. Here, let's go. So, Megs, you go to that deep door right. I'll cover that door to your immediate
Copy.
front, and then we'll flow to that one.
They basically just did what I said, but they kind of went a little bit further even. But they kind of had that same formation. They were just pushed farther down the hallway. So it's an option to call the guy back. It's also if we're like kind of trying to move that closed door, besides that little space that's already open, that's the immediate that needs to be cleared. It looked like maybe that first guy cleared it. If we're moving, boom, we set up on that door and we go right there. Interesting. So generally you would not bypass a closed door to go to another closed door. You would start working that closed door, that first nearest closed door first, and then move on from there. It's not a big deal. But you also have to have enough personnel now to cover on that door in the hallway, which is now the door. Let me show you. See it over here, the door in this room, right? So you could see where that'd be problematic if you didn't have enough personnel to actually do what they just did. I can't see what's going on in this room here, but we have at least 3 officers, if we're calling that. I don't know, operators, gamers, I don't know, in this room. And so there's open doors, right? So we would try to work the open doors before creating potentially another problem by opening a closed door, right? We don't know where that closed door goes. It could be a closet, which isn't a big deal, but in this case, the room opens up, and now I guess you're by yourself and you're going into this space. So we could trigger something by opening a closed door. So let's work the openings and the open doors first, generally speaking. And that's, something that you want to avoid is kind of what happened, right? It's okay, we're deconflicting with our lights and things like that. But let's say you have 3 people here. Yeah, we're holding the greatest angles that we can, being on opposite sides of the room. But what would have to happen, right, with this barrel wave here, like, so as everybody kind of crossed through this opening here, let me open it up so you can see a little bit more. After everybody crossed through this opening, we had 2 guys on the right. I presume they went into maybe this short room first, the small one. And I assume both of them went in there. So now we have 1 guy, off on his own doing something, and we have 2 guys in this room and so I would think that we lost coverage, right, in this space. You could have kept 1 guy, but generally you send 2 guys into a room together. So a better way to do this, like, let's keep everything in front of us and let's just kind of systematically do this. If you only had 3 guys, we know we're going to go to that opening first on the left side over here that he's looking at. So when you do that barrel wave, instead of doing the barrel wave and taking that door, or that, you would just suck into where they are, and you would be that 3rd guy that's kind of holding this whole area and waiting for them to come out, get a squeeze or whatever, and then continue clearing the next opening. Basically, the wedge is for instances where you have to bypass something and you're not going to go in there and clear it, but you probably going to come back for it. But you wouldn't do that if you had enough people to just hold on it or to just clear it. But the reason is because we want to make sure nobody's going to pop up behind us while we're sending everybody, all of our assets, to clear these other problems. I think we should all be in agreement on this, though. And if you haven't kind of Oh, well, the video that I have done for next Sunday, probably, a CQB video, and it's a video of Israeli, I'm not going to say SF because I don't know, but they are clearing a building in a room, and listen, I'm going to show you a way that they could have avoided having to do that. And it's like, to me, when I watch things like that, I'm like, oh, dang, like, we could have taken a second and made a better call. And I posted on my previous channel videos of the Israeli guys just getting lucky, you know, getting ready to walk through the threshold, and then gunshots start going off and they're able to get out of there, right? And so you just can't stand in front of doors. And in this case here, you just have one guy work the door, or stack on the knob side, right? One guy works the door and, you know, kick the door open and just pie it from there. But let's go back and see if there's something else here. I don't think we're going to get a better view of this, but this is what I'm talking about. Let me show you. So to the left of where this rack is here, this rack is up against a wall, right? Now you can see, I have the mouse. I think you guys can see that. Let's see if I can even go back just a tad more.
Prep on that door, right? Copy that.
So right here. So this wall right here is where that rack is on the other side, right? And so instead of standing right here in front of the door when we open the door, and sometimes you don't have this option, but stand back here, kind of use this wall as cover or concealment or whatever you want to use it as, so that when the door comes open, you're just not the first thing that they see, right? And this is exactly what I point out in this Israeli video that you guys will see. Yeah, don't do that. And if this wall wasn't there and you didn't have these things, but you still had like a corner-fed room or something where you couldn't stack on both sides, just stack on the same side. And once that door comes open, the guy that's holding on this wall here, he can be primary. I mean, he's seeing most of the room. This guy over here that on the gun is just seeing part of the room. But you know, you guys can make a call on how you do that. But I would like to see a little bit more thought going into the doors situation. And if you just think in your mind, hey, as soon as I open this door, shots are going to start being fired at me. And if you start thinking that way, and let's just say a real life thing, you'll start, you know, positioning yourself differently. And I think one of the big problems with this in real life is that people think that they're capable of just doing something that you're just not capable of doing it. It's just not possible, right? You are not able to process an entire room, you know, observe, react, make a decision, and deliver a round before somebody who's literally just waiting for the door to come open to start shooting. And when that happens, you don't stand there and go, oh, let me get on my sights and let me do that, right? You maybe try to do that, but also try to get the hell out of there, and it becomes a big mess right in front of the door. And so, yeah, that will help you mitigate that. Just think about, okay, if I work this door and you start shooting, what's going to happen? So if you start doing that, you'll start to clean that up. Again, don't know everything that's going on here, don't see everything, but this is another situation where the first two guys are going left, seems like. You would push a guy long, and he would clear to the left, and then depending on what it looks like after that, that right side would continue to move as you're holding long, and you kind of advance up together, if that makes sense. So I imagine we didn't actually clear that space to the right. This space over here, from here over to here, I don't think we cleared it, because this guy goes left, this guy also goes left, and I don't think a guy went that direction, because this guy ends up cutting across into the middle and facing left again. So, could be wrong, but that's what it looks like.
So once again, thanks for watching. Thank you to Kinetic Concepts for going along with the whole idea of using video games like this to teach tactics and review tactics and the way people do things. And thank you to the team for cooperating so much with making these videos. It was a great review. Kinetic Concepts did a wonderful job of analyzing these videos, and there's more to come. So thank you very much, and have a good day.